James Rabe is here. I'm Andy Brownell, and we are doing the second interview as part of our candidates interview series with the candidates for mayor of Rochester. And with us this morning, Charlie O'Connell. Good morning, Charlie, and welcome to the studios.
Good morning, gentlemen.
We have some bad news for you to start. We want to keep everything fair, even Steven, so we're calling everyone Bobby Joe. So today you're Bobby Joe, okay?
I'm good with it.
All right.
Glad you're good with it. I'm not.
Growing up with
Sorry,
four
Andy.
older brothers, I've been called a lot worse than Bobby Joe,
Well, there
so
you
I'm
go.
okay with that.
Yeah.
Well, let's start with that. You want to introduce yourself, Charlie, and tell the folks who are listening a bit about your background and why you want to be the next mayor of Rochester, Minnesota.
Absolutely. Well, again, a pleasure to be here. My name is Charlie O'Connell. My wife and I have been here in Rochester for the last 18 years. We moved up here from Iowa when we decided that we wanted to start raising a family, and we had an opportunity to come up here. So I've been here since then. I have 30 years and still counting in the military. Just recently transferred over from the National Guard to the Army Reserve. So changing things up a little bit after 30 years as much as you can with the new organization, but we'll still be wearing the uniform and work at the Mayo Clinic. I'm the security intelligence specialist. So that really gives me a lot of insight into working with the fantastic men and women that we have on the Rochester Police Department. And then also working with a lot of different federal agencies as well, too, the FBI and entities like that. When people ask me, why did I want to run for mayor, it really was, to me, a simple decision in the sense that it's really a natural extension of what I've been doing, like I said, for the last 30 years. So public service has always been something that has been very important to me. It was something that I grew up with, that my brothers grew up with, instilled into us from our parents. And as I'm entering into the twilight of my military career, I think of all of the different skill sets that I had the ability to hone, the opportunities that I have and that I've had in the past, and I want to be able to share those. And I want to be able to share those here locally because I've done 3 different deployments, so I've been around the world and then some. And so it would be nice to be able to, to serve my neighbors, to serve my family, but yet go to bed each night, put my head on my own pillow, and wake up and see the kids every morning as well, too.
Well, first of all, thanks for your service. And we asked the same question again. We've had Mayor Ardell Brady in office now for 16 years, and so we're kind of used to his style of mayor. Maybe you could offer up a comparison of how you envision your role as mayor if you were to win the election in November.
Sure, and I want to start off by saying I think that Mayor Brady did a fantastic job for his tenure. 16 years of, again, public service. No matter if you agreed with everything or disagreed with things, 16 years of public service is something that needs to be recognized. It needs to be appreciated because each and every day when you're a member of the city government or state or federal, you're under scrutiny, and that's not always fun. People like to take shots and they like to armchair quarterback decisions that are made, but at the same time, you're not the one that's putting your reputation online. So just want to thank Mayor Brady for all he's done. I've had a chance to talk to him just about that too, Andy. And when he took office 16 years ago, Rochester was a completely different city. It was a lot smaller. And we didn't have the DMC project going on. It was, I think, our typical every town Midwest, USA, that people really enjoyed living here. We always have had, for a long time, we've had the presence of the clinic, of course, but it was more of that small town feel. And so Mayor Brady, when he came in, just like many of the previous mayors, they really had that ambassador role. And so what they were doing was extremely important to being out into the public, to open up the new businesses, to speak at different events, to do that goodwill ambassador types of activities. That's what people really were looking for, and to also still give some direction and have discussions with the city council. But I think what we're seeing right now is that things are changing. We're a much larger city, and as a city grows, additional types of issues start to emerge. So safety and security, for instance. So when I first started knocking on doors, one of the things that people really said to me was, what are we going to be doing here in Rochester? I just don't feel as safe as I have. Well, one of the things that I want to make sure that people do understand is that Rochester really is an extremely safe city. We are. And if you look at same-sized cities across the U.S., you're going to see that our crime rate compared to them is very, very low. However, we are starting to see a lot of different types of crimes that were once an anomaly here becoming a little bit more frequent. And again, that's expected. It comes with growth. And I think that how my tenure would be different if I was fortunate enough to be elected as the next mayor is that making sure that I take a much more active role in working with the chief of police and with the new fire chief that we have. So being able to not just be that goodwill ambassador, that's going to be an important part, but to now start looking at, all right, let's look at our strategic goals and objectives that we have to set up as a city. Let's make sure that understanding from the mayoral position is involving all of the different projects that are going along. Not only DMC, of course, but recently the City Council approved the 2040 master plan for the city. Then we have additional plans that are the bike and path or bike and trail plan that's going on. So there's a lot of different things that I believe that the mayor is that last line of defense, that honest broker to make sure that all of the different things that are occurring are nested within each other so that we don't have these disparate plans that are being set out, and that the mayor is also the one that needs to help build that consensus of what the true priorities are occurring here in Rochester.
You mentioned taking a much more active role, and what are your feelings about the part-time, full-time mayor position? I mean, this sounds like, knowing what Ardell Brady is related to, it is really a full-time job. And as far as the time you put in, what are your feelings on it?
Well, and I think that again, it goes to that level of commitment. Is that it is set up as in our city charter as a weak mayoral system, so we know that it is a part-time position because we have a city administrator, and our new city administrator, Steve Reimer, he's been doing a fantastic job of taking the different types of best practices that he's seen throughout his career, bringing them back here into Rochester, soliciting those ideas, getting that consensus also within the city council, and trying to improve the processes that we go. So as far as mayor being concerned, it really is a matter of making sure that that the balance is there. And much like anything that we do in our lives, we have to strike that equilibrium that helps us. But for me, I think that the way that the city charter has it stated, the way that it was intended to be set up, that we wanted to have somebody that that had oversight for the chief of police, and then for that separation, the city council has the oversight for the fire department. And what that does in not having full-time positions is that, again, you're able to collaborate with people, not micromanage people, because that's not what your job is supposed to do.
Okay. Other issues, you mentioned public safety, obviously, and that seems to always be a great topic of discussion. But what other issues are you hearing from citizens as you've been campaigning?
Well, one of the big ones that still comes up is DMC, of course. And people want to know, well, and I've heard both sides of how fortunate we are to have DMC. And wow, DMC, this is not why I moved to Rochester. This is destroying Rochester, some people have said to me. And what we have to realize is that DMC is a very, very large project, but it comes with a lot of opportunities that I think that are going to benefit every one of Rochester's citizens. Now, when we look at how it's changing the landscape of Rochester, we know that change is inevitable. because you go across to a lot of cities that where status quo is the theme, that we're starting to see small town cities kind of die on the vine, and it's really a shame because they're not revitalizing their downtown. They're not having opportunities for their small businesses to bring people in. And one of the things that I often hear is that people love Rochester so much that they say, you know, I want to stay here, but beforehand I couldn't because there wasn't enough opportunities in things other than the medical profession or the support services for the clinic. And so really the DMC is going to be bringing a lot more jobs. DMC, I think that we need to make sure that we emphasize that we need to diversify the types of businesses that come in here to offer more opportunities. And that could be for the arts, that could be for entertainment, that could be for the service industry, you name it. We should be able to solicit to get those companies to come here. I think there's a golden opportunity to bring in manufacturers and developers to come here to set up shop because there's so many other components that will help their business thrive as well too. So I again, when I hear one of the main issues, it's, you know, it does come back to a DMC, and sometimes it's a lack of understanding. And I think that there's ample opportunity for for our city to once again start a new campaign of making sure that people are really clear of what DMC is and how it can help all of us.
Kind of a related issue, related issues. They're both tied to it, the DMC initiative. We've seen housing prices go way up in the community, and we anticipate all this growth, and also we're seeing stress on our transportation infrastructure. What are your views on the affordable housing issue, or challenge, I guess would be a better term, facing the community, and also our public transit system and what is being proposed and where you think it should go?
Sure. So during my early introductions, when I tell people about my platform, one of the things that comes right after the public safety is discussing economic opportunity. And what I mean by economic opportunity is this: is that we need to be able to have affordable housing. We need to be able to have alternate transportation. We need to be able to have affordable daycare as well too. And so we have to be able to provide and help all of those different types of industry pieces together, because what can happen is that for a lot of homes, a lot of households that still only have one vehicle, if that vehicle breaks down, that means that they can't get to work. Now they're putting in jeopardy their home that they may have. If they don't have affordable daycare, that may mean one of the parents has to stay home, and that's not able to provide additional income for that home. So we need to look at that. So we need to look at it very holistically in everything that goes on. And when I think about affordable housing, and we've been discussing this quite a bit. And everybody knows that it's not unique to Rochester. It's something that's happening across the nation right now. And it's not just affordable homes, it's homes in general. So, back in 2008, when everything kind of crashed on us, and we had a lot of people that were upside down in their homes because the values went down so quickly, that we need to be able to say, okay, what should and shouldn't we do in order to help the situation? And when I talk about what we shouldn't do, is that I believe that the market oftentimes resets itself and needs to be able to have that time to do just that. And that's what occurred in our economy. And I'm not a big proponent of saying, well, government needs to get involved in this. Government has to, be the one that's the driving force behind this. Because when we start growing our government and our services, then it's not a sustainable model that we can follow. And so there are pieces, though, that we can definitely help with. So specifically for the affordable housing, things that the city could do is, again, look at the processes that we have in place right now. And on Tuesday, we had a forum with the Rochester area builders, and I brought this up as a prime example, that when a developer comes and they have their master plan and they submit it to the planning committee, and then it comes back and it'll have some changes on there, some red pencil marks, like when we were a little kid and the teachers would correct our work. They go back, they make those corrections, they resubmit it, and they say, okay, yep, you're good to go. Go ahead and build these first homes in your development. So the developer will do just that, and then they complete those 2 or 3 different units. Now they have to submit the plans again, so they'll submit the plans, the revised ones, and all of a sudden it's taking time, and they come back with more red marks. And people say, well, wait a minute, there's been no changes in any policies or in any regulations. Why is this being marked up for a second time? Because really at that point it should be a rubber stamp that they've done all the things that they needed to do in order to get an improved plan. And so in the building industry, time is money. And when we're delaying things because of antiquated practices where we may be using a stubby pencil and post-it notes of review this, and then we have people that, not any ill intent by any means, but if they're interpreting those regulations or policies as opposed to saying, nope, this was approved only 4 months ago, let's get it back to the developer so that they continue, there's something wrong with that process. So we need to leverage technology. We need to leverage other best practices that are being utilized by other cities and make them into that Rochester way that's going to be best. And once we start doing things like that, not only is that going to affect the affordable housing industry, but it's going to affect all of housing. All the builders are going to have, be able to see that, things have been sped up, that they become more proficient. When I look at the fees and monies that before the project is even begun that are paid out, we need to look back and say, okay, let's re-examine. Are these all things that that are required and that are truly necessary, or did they kind of morph over time and they're not really the intent of what they were started at? So again, it's just being able to make sure that we can be as efficient as possible.
And one other topic I wanted to discuss before we run out of time is it's emerged over the last few years, at least, as with growing importance, is historic preservation and how you handle the growth and redevelopment, and then at the same time keep those little treasures that make Rochester what it is.
You're absolutely right. And when we talk about historic preservation, it really is an emotional topic because Rochester has a lot of memories for a lot of people. And so when they see storefronts or they see buildings that had been here for years and years and years being considered torn down or being torn down, they say, hey, what's happening to Rochester? Well, if we really go back and we look at how Rochester has always been a growing city, there's never really been a period where we've had any static growth. There's always been changes occurring. So you look right now, right next to the Plummer building is the Siemens building. So I wonder how many people realize that was the original homestead of Horace Mayo. And he said, you know what? The homestead isn't important. The land is. And so they gave up that piece of land so that they could build the College of, I think it was 1915 there. And that's what they did. And then when the time came for that, okay, we can improve and better utilize this land here, that was taken down again, and then the Siemens building was erected. So again, it's finding that balance from not impeding on the rights of people who buy buildings and want to develop them, but also making sure that we ask those questions up front of, hey, would you consider keeping this building, or what could we do to help? Because at the end of the day, somebody has to pay for it, and so by making that a requirement to that building owner, is that fair? A lot of people say no. Other people say yes, it is. But it's definitely a balancing act that it's made easier with good discussion and good dialogue.
All right. Well, we are almost out of time. So how about a closing statement?
Well, thank you very much. And it is amazing how fast time flies on us when we're having fun. And my closing statement is this: is that come November, there's really a couple of choices there's 2 choices that people have. And I've said this before, and I mean no disrespect to this, but it's just the way that I see it, is that you have my opponent who's been involved in politics for many, many years. And so you have someone that was in the school board, was a state legislator, and did a Bush Fellowship. And those are all great things. Those do help with gaining leadership. However, I have a different type of leadership. And my leadership comes from 30 years of being a public servant, of having worked, with different cities, with different states across the nation and internationally, and being able to give it a new, fresh look, a practical, common guy type of look, to be honest with you, because I'm not a career politician. I am somebody who's always been a concerned citizen, somebody that's always looked to see where I can help out, where that need is. And I believe that what makes me the best candidate is those skills that I've been taught, that I've learned, that I've developed over the course of the last 30 years in team building, in consensus building, and to give it that practical approach that, hey, if I don't understand it, there's probably other people that don't understand it too. Because I've always said I'm smart enough to know that I'm not the smartest person in a room. And when I say that, it's because I'm not afraid to ask questions that if I truly don't understand a process, or if I believe that a process is not as efficient as it can be, I'm going to make sure that those concerns are being brought forth so that we can have that dialogue, so that we can see if that improvement is done. And those types of concerns really come from people that have been approaching me, ever since I announced my candidacy. And so that's why I'm asking for people to vote for me in November. And I appreciate all the votes that I received to get me through the primaries. And I'm willing to hit the ground running as the next mayor of Rochester.